Hello, book lovers. Welcome to Must Love Books. Welcome back to Must Love Books podcast. Today I am here with Joelle Wellington, the author of Their Vicious Games and The Blonde Dies First, which is releasing today. Joelle grew up in Brooklyn, New York, where her childhood was spent wandering the main branch of the Brooklyn Public Library. When she isn't writing, she's reading, and when she's not doing that, she's attempting to bake bread with varying degrees of success or strengthening her encyclopedia-like pulp culture knowledge. She can be found on Twitter under @Joelle_Welling. Hello, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. I literally cannot complain. So,
No complaints.
no.
Well, again, I would just love to congratulate you on your release day for The Blonde Dies First.
Thank you so much. It's really exciting. I can't believe it's finally here. I don't know. It's been a very, I don't know, I feel different than leading up to my debut year, like more settled. And so I'm just like excited that I get to be like, oh, here's my second book. Like that's so crazy to me that I can say that.
And also exciting, second book in 2 years.
I know that, and we could get into like how that felt impossible until quite literally this very moment where it is in my hands and I'm like touching it and looking at it. Like I really thought that it wasn't going to happen. So,
Well, that is incredible. And I'm so happy to have you on Must Love Books today. Why don't you dive in and tell us all about The Blonde Dies First?
yeah. So The Blonde Dies First is very much my love letter to the things that I enjoyed in childhood, the places that I've been in childhood. I grew up in Brooklyn. I went like literally my entire life. And I've always loved horror movies. They gave me a great sense of comfort growing up because used to love to be scared. I'm not easily scared nowadays, I will say. But when I was younger, I loved to be scared. It just made me really excited. And so I wanted to write about that. And I wanted to kind of like pay homage to a lot of my favorite horror films. And that's like Scream and It Follows and Final Destination. Like all of these books, all of these films are like amazing to me. Like I'm obsessed with them. And I just wanted to translate my love within the pages, while also telling a story that's like very relevant to Brooklyn. So I know that a lot of people that have read it, like it's funny, I didn't think of it as an important theme when I was writing it because it just felt true to form. It just felt very natural. But there is the theme of like gentrification in Brooklyn, which is like a really big thing right now. Like I have a lot of friends whose families are being priced out of their neighborhoods. And it's not by people that are moving there. It is by people that are from Brooklyn who are pricing out other Brooklynites to create like apartment buildings and whatnot. And I just kind of wanted to write to that a little bit, and write a story about kids that are from Brooklyn that look like they're kids from Brooklyn. So it's like a pretty full cast of BIPOC. And I really love that. Like it makes me really happy to have that in my book. So yeah.
I have to say, my favorite part, just from what I know of The Blonde Dies First, is your immediate mention of Scream.
Yes.
These Scream movies are not only my favorite horror movies, but some of my all-time favorite movies, period.
Yes.
So I am really
I
excited about you've got the horror movie rules and, kind of a bit of
yes.
a meta storytelling style, which I really, really love. And I'm so looking forward to.
Yeah, I really wanted to do a horror comedy that like also played to the meta narrative, which is part of why I like when I think about meta horror, I think even beyond Scream, I just think of Wes Craven, who I definitely did thank in my acknowledgments. Um, like everything, like I like when I think about like other horror films I love, like New Nightmare comes to mind, right?
Yes.
So like, which I think is like very much a proto version of Scream in a lot of ways. Like you could see the themes and ideas that uh Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson had it like in Scream. I think those were like the ideation was definitely in New Nightmare. And I think it's very obvious how you could see how he would go from that franchise to making Scream. And it makes a lot of sense to me. And I just, when I was thinking about that, I was like, okay, I know that in my own work, in my first book, it's a satire of class and race and reality TV. And I was thinking about how that naturally progressed for me to go to The Blonde Dies First. And I was like, okay, how do I dissect these themes within this story framework that I'm trying to tell? And it immediately jumped out to me. I was like, meta horror. Like that's, and I know that's such a like an abstract word, right? For people that aren't super like into this very niche part of horror, right? But I just knew that I was like, okay, this is definitely where my interests lie because I've been so in love with horror for so long. I was like, okay, my natural step is to like, how do I take apart these themes and like look at it in a new, interesting way, especially because like in horror, there aren't that many characters of color that are the main characters. And I was like, how do I do this without also centering whiteness in some way? And I was really like pleasantly surprised with where I landed. And I do really love all these characters and where I've landed with them. And I hope that I, again, in my acknowledgments, I was like, I hope I do you proud, Wes Craven, wherever you are. So, but yeah.
I love how you are able to touch on all of the various horror themed tropes that we see in our
Mhm.
favorite movies as well as our favorite horror novels and really kind of bring a new twist onto them.
Yeah, I try, especially again, the title Blonde, who is the main character. Her name is Devon, and I really enjoyed the idea of the like you always think about how the blonde dies first in films and like what she is like. It's like she's usually depicted as sexually promiscuous and not very intelligent, all of these things. And I thought that was so like flattening and kind of boring, right? And so when I thought of my main character, Devon, I liked the idea that not only is she not a natural blonde, right? Like she kind of puts herself in this role where she bleaches her eyebrows, she bleaches her hair, she like puts herself into this role, but also I think that she embodies a lot of the different tropes that usually goes with the blonde in horror, but also has incredible depth in that she maybe she's not the smartest because in the friend group she isn't the smartest. Like there's a literal genius in the friend group who is her twin sister, but she has an emotional depth and she's has her insecurities and she's like a fully realized character. And I wanted to be like that blonde that you laugh at that dies first in horror films. She's also a fully realized human being. And I think it's important to think about humanity because horror, in my mind, has always been a reflection of the fears of society, right? And you can't really divorce humanity from that. I think you have to have humanity to be afraid, because that means you're aware enough of that. So yeah,
I love
but
that.
yeah,
And
there's just so many like things I could talk about this book about how like the themes that popped out to me out of this random idea I had that I like genuinely usually with a book I think about themes first, and then the narrative comes around that. I I literally for this book I thought the blonde dies first. What do I got? Like how do I get from there? But yeah.
that's so great. You know, they touch a little bit of on this in the opening sequence for Scream 4 when, you know, obviously they're going after the very attractive young blonde and she points out, you know, like I have a 4.0 GPA, like I'm
Hmm.
intelligent and I mean obviously it doesn't save her. They go after her anyway, but I really just love seeing those age-old tropes kind of be spun around and have the script flipped on them to present them in a new format.
And it's funny because I tried really hard not to read any horror while I wrote it because I think often I want to pay homage, but also like kind of cut through a lot of the tropes at the same time to make sure that like I was actually thinking critically about it instead of following a pattern. So I didn't read any horror while I was writing it. I didn't watch any horror. Like usually I rewatch Scream maybe once a month. I literally just Monday I went to a rooftop like nighttime screening of Scream because I was like, I think it's time.
I'm kind of jealous of the rooftop screening though.
It was so fun. So obsessed. Like it like they give you the little microphones so that the city noise doesn't interfere. And we were all in, they have like these really soft seats where you can just look up a screen. And then I saw American Psycho at that same rooftop like 2 weeks ago. It was so like I feel like it's the perfect place to watch horror movies. I don't know.
Yeah. And
But
it
yeah.
sounds like a great setting for to include in a horror novel too.
Yes. Like
You
so many
know,
things can happen on a roof. Like
exactly.
who's
Like
to
there's
say?
so many ways that a, horror bad guy or monster or demon or something can really mess things up at a rooftop
Yes.
movie, especially if we're going with something more meta.
Yes.
So there's your inspiration for your third one.
Oh, it's so funny. I actually turned in my third book 2 weeks ago.
Oh my goodness. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you have
It
anything
is
that you can share about it yet, or is it too early?
I can say that it is once again extremely different from my first two books. I'm like really enjoying the fact that every single time I'm like almost reinventing myself. I feel like I'm re-debuting every single book because each one is so tonally different. But this one is definitely like very different for me. I don't think I've ever really attempted to like it's a murder mystery, which I've never really written. So there was a learning curve, but it was very fun.
Well,
But that is
congratulations.
literally all I can tell you. Thank you. We don't even have a title. I have a working title that we all agreed was bad. So we'll 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 make it work from there. We were all like, that's not good. And I'm like, you're right. I don't know. I'm not particularly good at naming my own books. I named my second one, but I did not name my first.
Yeah.
My first book that was a tough one. I actually named it Bloodsport, which I have a tattoo of. But I remember my editor being like, "Hey, there's like a movie called Bloodsport. You can't also be called that." And I was like, "I don't know. Is it a famous movie?" And she was like, "Yeah, it's like incredibly famous. You like definitely can't use that." And I was like, "Ah, well, we'll figure it out, I guess."
So you released this novel just about a year ago now,
Yes, coming up on a year. Yeah,
and that
which is
was your
crazy.
debut.
Yes.
So how about we dive in? Tell us a little bit about their vicious games.
So, the Vicious Games I wrote in 2020. Yeah, I think. Yes. So I don't know, those years are such a blur.
They really are.
Uh, yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know what the day was. Like, I was like, I don't know. But yes, I wrote Their Vicious Games in 2020. I had been on submission for a book before then. It was a YA fantasy because I think when you decide you want to be an author, a lot of times you think that's what you write because that's what, at the time what was being published most and what was like most popular. It wasn't very good. Um, but I guess people saw something in me. So 2020 happened, and I was watching a lot of horror films for comfort, and I was rewatching my favorite season of The Bachelor, which is the season with Juan Pablo. He is like a very funny bachelor who was like kind of known as the worst bachelor. I feel like he's probably been replaced by now. But as the worst bachelor, they're all kind of terrible. But I was rewatching that and I watched the movie Ready or Not for the first time
Oh, I
and I
love
was
that
obsessed with
one.
it. I love that movie. And I immediately, it was during that summer that a lot of like Black Lives Matter started gaining momentum. And I went to a private high school. I was the scholarship kid there. And there was like a black at insert school Instagram where people were recounting all of their stories about the school and like the microaggressions that were faced. And it was really interesting to read all of that because I remembered most of it happening, but also I did not remember my reaction to be that strong. I think at the time, because I was a teenager and I didn't know any better, I was like, I brushed it off and I was like, whatever. But as an adult, I was like, wait, that is a big deal. And that is pretty bad that this teacher said that. Like, that's not good. Um, and I kind of found it also funny at the same time. I was like, that is so bizarre that people just feel empowered to talk to Black students, children that way. Like, I was like, oh, okay. And so all of these random things that you think would not go together, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to write a satire about race and class and The Bachelor. And it's about this girl named Adina Walker who loses her scholarship to Yale. She loses her acceptance. And to get it back, she has to enter this competition called The Finish, which is hosted by the Remingtons, the founders of the private high school that she went to. And she enters the finish and she thinks it's all brain teasers and word games and small tests. And then she realizes it's a fight to the death, not only for ultimate access to privilege and power, but also for the hand of the Remington second son, who is also the heir because the first son sucks. So, in the eyes of his family, I love him, but in the eyes of his family, he's a flop. So, and I love that book. I wrote it in about 6 weeks, my first draft. I remember.
Wow.
Yeah, I just kept going, and I it's so different from the first draft. I do remember that. Like I think I cut a whole character who was pretty major. But I remember writing it and I sent it to my agent and she was like, this is very different from what I thought you were writing. And I was like, I know, it's not even the same genre that I had been saying that I was interested in. And I remember we did maybe a round or two, and then September of 2021 we sent it out, and 2 days later, we got interest, and then that interest built, and then we ended up in auction. It was so bizarre. I remember choosing Simon while I was picking out salmon at Trader Joe's. I did eeny, meeny, miny, mo. But I like assigned one publisher. It was like two publishers at the end. I assigned one to be one publisher and then the other salmon to be Simon. And I was like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I got the other publisher and then I was like, I don't want that one. I want this salmon that is representative of Simon and Schuster. Like I was like, I want this one. Oh yes, that's
I
the
gotta
story of
say, that is a first.
yeah. And I remember remember walking down the street with my Trader Joe's salmon and calling my agent, and it's like very noisy because I'm in the middle of the city. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just letting you know that we're gonna go with Simon." I don't know. Like I was like, I just got bought groceries, but I knew you had a timeline, so like that's my choice.
That is officially my new favorite publishing story.
And I remember texting my friends at the same time, and we all shared locations. So they had like my Find My, and I texted all of them. I was like, "Hey, I just picked Simon," and they were like, "Where are you? You're like in the middle of the street." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm going grocery shopping, but it's fine. I'm on my way home." Like I was like, "It's fine. I'm on my way home. It's good." And they were like, "All right, well, if you say so." But yes,
Yeah, I've never heard of anyone using fish to make a major decision for them. But it seems like it was honestly the perfect choice because you knew as soon as, that decision was made, you knew, oh, that's not the one you wanted.
Exactly. And
And that's the
I
way to
maybe
do
this
it.
is yeah, maybe this is a weird thing, but I do find that I do that a lot. Even with friends who are like, "Oh, help me make a decision." I will say the one that I feel that they don't want, and then I'll be like, "Well, whatever your immediate reaction to what I just said was, then that's probably the right choice for you, right?"
Yeah.
Like,
Like, are you disappointed
uh,
or are you excited? Yeah.
yeah, I do that with literally everything. I do that with book ideas too. Like sometimes I like have more than one, and I'm like, well, what do I focus on right now? And if I do the eeny, meeny, miny, moe, or I pick a tarot card and I immediately am not into it, I'm like, oh well, it's obvious. I clearly wanted to do the other one, so I think it's a foolproof way to live life. I don't know. That's me personally, but
I agree. I am down for this.
but I also think it's funny and a theatrical story to tell. And as a former theater kid, I have to be theatrical about
Oh, of course.
things.
So I want to have us shift a little bit more. I got to find another
Mhm.
phrase outside of saying shift gears because that phrase I use constantly that I'm always editing it out because I'm like, let's shift gears. Stop saying that.
Oh,
I
I'm sure I have crutch phrases that I have written down somewhere that my publisher, my editor is always like, Joelle, enough.
right. Stop
Like,
saying this.
like it'll be in a first person. She's like, I think we are assuming that she saw. She is the eye in question. I'm like, you're right. You're right. I don't know. I'm like, and it is what it is. You're always gonna have a crutch word that you feel more comfortable using, just because it's like that's your word. It's yours. And if your
Yeah.
phrase is switch gears, it's your phrase. Own it.
In in my writing, I was going with a an editor and she's like, your character is constantly sighing. Like every other
Yeah,
page, she's sighing. I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe she just is walking around sighing at everything. Maybe she actually just is.
I have a sigh, a gaze, like, oh, I swear too much in my work. Oh my God,
Oh
that's
yeah.
always a big problem. When I get to like around the third draft, that's when my editor is like, Joelle, you gotta cut down on the swear words. Like at one point with Blonde, I think I had four F bombs on a page. And she was like, I'm gonna let you keep this only because they're being actively chased by a demon. But everywhere else, no. I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I get it. I get it. But yeah, that is one of the worst things that I do. But I think it's good because being self-aware about it means that you can eventually change it because
Yeah,
eventually you'll catch yourself.
exactly.
But yes.
So that was a whole roundabout way of saying that I wanted to ask you about all these sunken souls.
Oh my gosh, no one has ever asked me about all these sunken
Really?
souls.
Oh my goodness.
That
Okay,
makes me so happy.
let's talk about it.
Okay, so the editor is my actual best friend, Cersei. Cersei Moskowitz. I think she's probably one of the most brilliant authors I have ever met in my entire life. And it was so funny. I met all of my best friends through this anthology. So when Cersei was still active on social media, she has now absconded because she was like, I'm freeing myself. Which she's so real for. I wish I could do that. Um, but I'm addicted to the app formerly known as X, as Twitter or whatever X is called now.
Yeah, I'm still calling it
Um,
Twitter
Me too. I'm like
forever.
the app formerly known as Twitter. All right, but I remember she tweeted something about like doing a Black Horror Anthology, and I was super into it. I was like, me, 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 me. Because I think that she had read a the only short story before other than All These Sunken Souls that I've ever published. I wrote something called Cottonmouth. And I published it in Apex magazine a couple of years ago. which was a short story that was a take on what is it a take on? It's been that long since I've like read it or looked at it. But it was about a young woman locked in an attic and the owner of the house finding her, and it was very Koshai the Deathless coded. Um, but I she had read it and she was like very into it, and then eventually we connected about that. And our other friend Asia Monet, she's like very big Twitter personality, and fantastic author. And she knew a couple of us in the anthology, Joel Rochester, who is at Fictional Fates on YouTube, and Asia threw us all in a group chat and was like, "We're gonna be friends." And so she forced us all to be friends. And now they're my best friends. And out of that, like we started writing All These Sunken Souls, and it's just a fantastic anthology of Black authors who are like very bold and audacious in their story choices. And I got to write The Consumption of Vienna Montrose, which is a very weird short story. Also very divisive. I don't really read reviews, um, like ever, but I do read reviews for All These Sunken Souls because I think that that's fun. I don't read reviews for my own books though. I don't want to know. Like those, I don't want to know what you think. Like you already bought it. Like I don't thank you for buying it. Like thank you for making a purchase. I don't I don't need to know what you thought about it. But like I don't. I'm like, ooh, what if it's a bad thing? Like it's okay. You can have your own opinion. I have my own opinion about books that everybody else loves. Like, it's fine. We can all have our own opinions. But All These Sunken Souls, I got to write The Consumption of Vienna Montrose, which is very weird, divisive, short story about a girl named Vienna Montrose, whose grandmother was also named Vienna Montrose. And she, her grandmother had passed away and left her the house only because it was easier to leave it to her because they wouldn't have to change the name on the deed. So it's this rundown home that she remembers growing up in, and Vienna is redoing it and is very much haunted by what that also has a POV, and it's about the house falling in love with her, and it's very, very fun. Well, I found it fun. I think some people find it gross, but that's okay. um, but yeah, I just loved writing it, and I felt so empowered by Cersei to write it because I remember my first draft. She was like, "I feel like you didn't really push yourself," because I remember she was like, "I thought you wanted to tell part of the story from the POV of the house, which I hadn't done in the first draft." And she was like, "I was like, I did, but I don't know. Maybe it's too weird." And Cersei was like, "No, no, no, no. Just like we're at a small press, like, and I'm the editor, so I think you should write whatever you want." And I felt so empowered to do so, and I just loved, loved, right, being part of that process. And I'm so proud of that short story collection. Like, it just makes me really happy to be a part of. And I'm just so glad that you asked about it. That makes me so happy.
Well, I'm happy to make you happy. That's awesome. I actually do have Sammy Ellis coming on the show later this year too. So there will be a
Oh my,
couple of you
Sammy Ellis
sunken
is so
souls.
talented too.
I am so
Yes,
excited to have her on. I can't wait. So her episode will be out. It will be towards the end of the year. It'll be almost like a
I'm
sunken
excited.
soul reunion.
I know I like talking about process and routine because I don't have one. Um, and I think that a lot of I think a lot of authors say that you kind of need to build a routine. I don't know if that's true. As long as you, like, I don't, yeah, I don't really have one. I think I write whenever I feel like it, or whenever I have to. Like, those are two different things, I think. Like, when I'm on deadline, I definitely write every single day. And I'm writing minimum 2,000 words every day. Um, but that's only when I'm on deadline. When I'm free to do whatever I want, um, I'm very much more. relax. Like I will maybe do 200 words a day. And I think that anything can be a part of the process. So usually when I come up with an idea, I seek validation immediately, which is why like because that's such an author thing to do. So I immediately text my friends and I text a screenshot. I'm like, what do you think of this idea that I wrote down in a notes app that's not a complete sentence? And they're like, yay. And then I make a Pinterest board because I'm a visual person. I make Pinterest board, I make a Spotify playlist. I have to set the vibes. Like the vibes have to be really, really apparent to me. And then I write in a really detailed outline. I know a lot of pantsers who I think are so brave. But when I try to pants, my brain turns off. And then I get like confused by my own idea. I'm always like, I don't really know what's happening. And I hate that. I need a plan. I can stray from the plan, but I have to have the backup of a plan in place or get very anxious about it, which is weird because I'm like, again, what am I getting anxious over? It's me. It's my own book. Like I'm holding myself to my own standards. Nobody even knows about this yet. So I'm like, that's so odd. But I write a very detailed outline, like detailed as in chapter by chapter. So I always know where we end. I don't know how we always get there, but I do know how we always end. And I write from there and I pretty much sure I make a playlist, but what always ends up happening is I become fixated with one exact song. Oh, I guess I can tell you the one song that I got fixated on for the third. It was, let's see, I'm gonna scroll down. Not Strong Enough by Boy Genius.
Oh,
Uh and also where there were two songs. So it was that one and it was American Teenager by Ethel Cain. So those are my two songs that I fixated for the entire third book. And I just would play them over and over again. I'd be like, yes, this is it. My brain is moving. And then I just write and I take notes while I draft because I can usually see where the problem is. Like, because I think that I always have a problem with my first book. I'm really bad at beginnings. Like I always hate my first chapter. It always takes me the longest to write a first chapter because I will give up midway through writing it. And I'll be like, well, I guess the book's not worth it. So, like, I guess this book won't happen. Um, I will say writing on a proposal has kind of helped me with that a little bit because there's something less intimidating about having to write only two chapters and a synopsis versus writing the first chapter of a whole book. Because in my brain, I'm like, okay, so I wrote the first two chapters. You could simply say no, and then I don't have to write it at all. So with my third book, it was helpful that I only had those first two chapters when I did my proposal, because when I had to actually write it, I didn't change them at all. I felt like I had already like gotten into past that weird hump in the middle of the first chapter where I could immediately go into the third one and be like, okay, here we go. Like we're moving, we're shaking, things are happening. Like the book has begun. But yeah, I do take notes as I draft because I know that there's something wrong with it that I am still too close to the manuscript to see because I'm in the middle of it, but I will end up sending it to an alpha reader. Well, I'll be like, hey, this is not right. And I know it's not, but I would love if you could see where it's not right. That would be very helpful to me. And I always have the same alpha reader. It's my best friend from childhood. Just like she used to when I was in college and I was unagented, we used to FaceTime each other and she would read aloud my books to me while she's reading it. It was bizarre and I was like, I don't think I need to be on FaceTime with you while you read this. And she's like, no, you need to get my reaction. Like I'm a YouTube channel that is making reaction videos. And I was like, you're insane. I don't need this. I don't need this at all. And she'd just be like, no. You don't get it. I'm tapped in. I was like, all right. So I wouldn't be allowed to leave. I would try and hang up and she'd call me back. She'd be like, I'm not done reading. And she's like, I would like you to send this to me chapter by chapter. I was like, okay. So yes, I send it to my same alpha reader.
Well,
and she gives me notes
they say that you should always read all of your dialogue out loud.
out loud. I do
Yeah.
that,
So,
I will say.
she's just helping you along. Honestly, I think that sounds like a
Yeah.
great method.
Yeah, and I think it's important for your alpha reader to not be another author. She's a
Yeah.
lawyer. So
Oh, yeah, completely
she's
different
a,
field.
yeah, she's a lawyer. So I it's so helpful because she's only looking at it from the perspective of a reader. She's like, do I like she's like, does this make sense to me as a reader? I'm like, yeah, I think sometimes as an author I get too trapped in what I want as the author. Like it's in my
Yeah.
head, I'm like, what is it? What am I doing? Like, does this satisfy me? But I'm like, well, I'm not the primary, I'm not the audience. Like, I'm just the creator. And then once it's in the world, it's in the world. It belongs to those people. So I have to think about those people when I work. And she keeps me grounded in that. She reminds me constantly. She's like, does this make sense to your reader? Like, and I do like to get a little abstract in my work sometimes. And she's always like, this is great, but take it back if you want it to be what you said you wanted it to be, which often I'm like, I want it to be accessible, I want it to be commercial, especially because when I write YA, I think a lot about the literacy challenges of young people, especially in the United States. Like the literacy levels are like pretty low, and I in a lot of parts of the United States, and I'm like, well, this is the audience I'm writing for. These are the people I hope to. These are the teenagers I hope that enjoy my work, and I want to make it as accessible to them as possible without speaking down to them, because I think that sometimes authors forget that teenagers are very smart, and you shouldn't talk down to them. Like that's silly. Like they're capable of great thought, and leadership, and you have to address them that way.
Well, I think that's an excellent method. And
Thank
clearly
you.
it is working.
It is like, which is exciting. So
I love that. All right. Well, we are starting to come up on time here.
just read the Blonde Eyes first. Watch Scream.
Yes. Read The Blonde Eyes first, watch Screamed, and then go back and read Their Vicious Games too.
Yes, I do love that book. Go read that. It's a good one. She's in paperback now too. Like that's fantastic. That means it's easier to carry around. That
Yes,
hardcover was pretty thick. It was thick.
it
It was
was.
big.
Yeah.
Like I get it. I will say the Blonde Ice Curse is so much smaller, and I'm like really happy about that. I was really intent on making it a much smaller book.
Well, I am so excited to pick it up. And once again, congratulations on your release
Thank
day.
you. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. And this has been Must Love Books Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Must Love Books. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon under @Must Love Books Podcast. Thank you and happy reading.